Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Working Esports podcast. I'm your host, Sam, aka Just Casual. I have here with me a special guest, Peter Lamb, aka Zenos King. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to the show.
Yeah, I'm excited. We've talked a while ago and we've kind of kept up on Twitter a little bit. So I'm really
hmm
excited to catch up. And also, I think we're going to have some really interesting stuff to talk about. I'm really excited.
Same here. When you said welcome, I had to stop myself for a second because I was about to say welcome. Usually I'm the host of the show. And my hosting tendencies were coming out, and I was like, wait a minute, no, I'm just supposed to say thank you. And we're gonna move on. I'm not gonna say welcome.
That's funny. Hey, if you want to take over the show at any point of this, uh, feel free. It'll make my job easier. Okay, so
No, all
I
right.
got some background information on you, just so everyone can get some context who you are, and then we're just really like jump right into a lot of questions, and I think some really interesting topics that I've scrounged up. But
Mhm.
first of all, if I miss anything, let me know,
Yes.
because you've done a lot. So
Well,
pretty
thank you.
much, what I found from you is right now you're a brand strategist and content producer. And
hmm
leading up to that point, basically, when it comes to esports, you got really interested in it in college. You got so interested, you started a collegiate program at your college, which you founded. You were president, and while you were at university, you were involved with big organizations like TESPA, CSL, AVGL. Uh, Even after graduation or in the end of college, you did things with ESL, like being a player handler. You started producing live streams with Cross Counter TV. You've also done live and post production with OGN, with like the PUBG League and Clash Royale. And currently, you're doing something, Hansei, which what I've scrounged up is pretty much empowering creators to make money doing what they love. So, did I cover this huge gamut of like this esports content creation brand stuff that you've done so far?
I think so. Two things. Just so people know. One, I didn't work for TESPA or with TESPA on anything or AVGL. Our collegiate program, not even a program at the time, it was an organization. Did do stuff with them, like we participated in AVGL and stuff like that. But the only company I actually worked for in collegiate was CSL while I was in college. But
Gotcha.
everything else is pretty much correct. And yeah, I want to empower people with Hansei. That's what I'm doing now. It's a content education platform that I'm trying to build to help people who want to work in esports figure out exactly where they belong and how to make money doing what they love. And that's, if you're a content creator, if you want a job slash career in the industry or a professional player, there are different people with a lot of different avenues that they can go towards, right? So it's like, which one is the best way for you? And let's figure out the best way to do it.
Nice, nice. So actually, since you brought up Hansei, why did you decide to do that, and what do you find is the value in it for you?
Okay. So like you said, I did a lot of stuff in esports, I guess relative to students, right? I'm pretty sure there are a lot of other people who's done more in esports than I have. But with my experience, I was that kid who wanted to work in esports but didn't exactly know what I wanted to do, right? The famous question that a lot of leaders get is, I want to work in esports. And then you go, all right, cool. What do you want to do? Or what are you good at? And they're like, I don't know. I just want to work in esports. I'm
Mhm.
passionate about it. I just hire me. I could do whatever. And that was me too 3 years ago, right after graduating college. So I had to try out a lot of things. I tried live streaming full time. I worked with Cross Counter TV and was a big part of the FGC. That was a big part of my life. Um, so I got to experience that. ESL with player handling, producing live content with OGN, and producing um, just, they call it shoulder content. It's any extra content that's not the main what do you call it, tournament
Mhm.
content. You know what I'm saying? If it's not
Yeah.
the tournament, if it's like interviews or game shows or anything extra, that's considered shoulder content. So I even did league ops. I did shit like a lot of other stuff, right? And
Mhm.
eventually I figured out, it's like, I love all of those. I love content. I love everybody that I was working with. I love, not content, but production. But it wasn't for me. I realized after I woke up and the days were pretty much feeling the same. And I promised myself when I was in college, I think, that I would never live that 9 to 5 loop, or at least I wouldn't want to feel like I'm in a 9 to 5 loop. So I woke up and I realized, hey, I can't. This is not happening. I am in this loop now. I am going to finish what I started with OGN with the seasons and stuff like that. But once it's done, like I have to pivot. I have to do something else. And during my time at OGN, during my last couple of months, I discovered an education platform called The Future,
Hmm.
and that's headed by a guy named Christo. They teach the business of design and the design of business. Pretty much what they want to do is they want to empower and teach 1 billion creatives how to make money doing what they love. Sounds familiar, right? So I wanted to take this concept and everything that I've learned there, and instead of applying it to designers and creatives, I wanted to apply it to people in the esports industry. Whether, like I said, you're looking for a job, or you want to create content, or if you're a professional player, right? And so this is where the journey kind of started.
Yeah, that was really thorough. You covered so like I have so many things to ask about that, and I gotta like pick apart that before where else we're gonna go everywhere. So
Yes, yes, yes.
oh man, where should I start with it? Okay, so I think something that would be really valuable. We talked about this. Coming out of college, it seemed like you were able to find esports work pretty quickly. So how were you able to find that stuff and just start grinding? Because I think a lot of college students, whether they're in college or coming out of college, like you mentioned, like they just like, I'm really passionate, but I don't know what I want to do. So how were you
Mhm.
able to start moving forward really quickly?
Let me be real with everybody. It was not quickly. It was very slow. I felt like it was slow, because nothing happened for like the first 6 or so months right after graduation,
Hmm.
even longer than that. So pretty much what happened was I came out of college, and this is when I moved to Las Vegas, Nevada, because at the time we were going around doing some moving stuff, and my mom was working remote, my dad was working remote, and I was just all over the place. So I was kind of like, okay, cool, aunt, can I live with you? She's like, yeah, awesome. Lived in Las Vegas for free with my brother, Patrick, and my girlfriend Winnie. So us three, we ended up going to Las Vegas and being there for a while. And while I was there, I was like, okay, well, I definitely don't want a regular job in the industry. I just graduated, and I did a bunch of esports stuff. That's what I want to do. What do I do? Let's go look for jobs. Let's go look for applications,
Hmm.
right? Then you run into the paradox of you have to have you for a entry level job, you have to have 2 or 3 years of experience for an entry level job. And I'm like, where am I going to get this? I know I did stuff in collegiate, but unfortunately, and this is the lesson I've come to learn later, and this has influenced my philosophy on what I'm trying to teach, but I had very little to no proof of what I did. I didn't document my journey in college with everything that I've done. So I only have a few pictures and my own memory to tell the story,
Hmm.
right? So, yeah, some stuff was on the resume, but not really. Couldn't find a job. I did nothing for a whole year, watched a lot of Netflix, played a lot of video games. I tried streaming full time, and that was difficult. Kind of got somewhere with it, but not really. And it wasn't until PAX West when I was just kind of roaming around. And you know what? I was like, PAX and TwitchCon and all these conventions are kind of like the best places to network that I found out. And I decided to go and talk to a bunch of vendors and people from different companies to get to know them. And then I ran across this guy named Gootecks, aka PogChamp, if you want to know what his face looks like. And he has a channel called Cross Counter TV. They've done a lot of fighting game content back in the day, around the Street Fighter 4 era. That was kind of their primary focus. They did excellent adventures, which you might have heard of. And I asked them, I was like, "Hey, Gutex, I want to work for you. Is there?" I literally just asked them. I was like, "Yo, can I help you out? Can I work for you? Is there
Hmm.
anything I can do?" Um, and he's like, "Well, just email me." So I emailed him. Nothing came about it. I was like, all right, what do I do? I've never done this before. I haven't emailed anyone like this in this type of capacity before. So I had to wait 2 weeks. That's what I learned. I researched it 2 weeks. I followed up, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, my bad. Talk to this person," which was I think his assistant at the time. I forgot. I talked to her. She was talking to me, got to know me a little bit, but not. They didn't really have work for me. That was the problem. I think they didn't really have work for me, and so PAX was around September. Come all the way to 2018 of January. That's when CES happened. Gootecks finally hits me up because he was here for CES and was like, "Yo, let's go. Want to go to barbecue? Want to go to CES with me?" And I was like, "Okay, sure." Right? I was already at CES anyway, so I was like, "Sure, let's go eat some. Let's go eat some barbecue. Let's go talk." I guess did like a little informal interview. We got to know each other, and slowly from there, I started to figure out what I could do for him. But it was so difficult because at first I didn't know what I was good at. I didn't know what my skill sets were, and it made it hard for him as a person looking for help how to actually apply me to his company.
Yeah.
You see, so that's how it all started.
So why do you think he reached out to you? Like what was it about what was it about you guys' interactions or you that he was like, "Oh, I remember this guy. Oh, I should reach out to him because I'm going to CES."
Honestly, I don't know because I don't want to put words in his mouth, right?
Mm.
But I think maybe part of it was just I asked, I followed up. Those were two
Mhm.
things I think I did right. And the third thing was during like I had knowledge and I was willing to learn. I think that was and it just sounds all so general, but it's the first step, right?
Yeah.
Reaching out, making sure you follow up, having the knowledge of the industry and knowing, generally what's going on with what because I'm not originally in the FGC. I came into the FGC like pretty late. But I was interested in fighting games nonetheless and I just talked to him and I told him what I knew how to do. And thankfully I was really good in production and he kind of needed someone like that. I threw
Mhm.
around some ideas and he was like, "Okay, I'm open to it." But what's important is that you find someone who's open to your ideas because I know a lot of people who would shut down ideas super easily. I'm thankful that he was open to some of not my ideas because he moved to Vegas after from LA and there was a fighting game scene and I knew the people. So he's like, "Go ahead, take the Instagram account, do Instagram stories, create some content." So showed me the ropes and figure out exactly where I could fit. But that situation won't happen for everybody.
Yeah, yeah. So, when it comes to what you did with Gootecks, you would say so you produced live stuff and you did also that shorter content, right? Or was that with just OGN?
Um, I actually did both. I actually did it before I even knew what shoulder content was for Gootecks. So like we went to different tournaments like NCR. We went to a hotel room, filmed some interviews with like Fantasy Strike people.
Mhm.
Um, I went around interviewing local players in Las Vegas. And then when time came for like some tournament stuff, before Evo, Las Vegas likes to have this thing with the local gaming what do you call it? The gaming venue called Press Start Gaming, and we run this thing called PSG Classic, which is like the pre-Evo event. And
Mm.
Cross Counter took care of one of the streams, and that was me. So I did the live stream for that too.
If anyone heard what you just explained that you did for Cross Counter TV, they're like, that sounds like something I want to do. Whether
Uh,
that's live production or content or interviews, all that kind of stuff. What would you say to them? Just advice.
you don't need a cross counter to have you get started. Honestly, a lot of the stuff that he showed me, I was like, I learned a lot. I
Hmm.
learned what the clap was, right? Like I knew exactly what you're doing in the beginning, but I didn't know that before. So some there are some things that you're gonna learn as you go along. If you have like a mentor or someone to show you the ropes, eventually you'll come across that information. Information is not the problem. It's not the solution for in the beginning. The thing that you should aim for is the experience. Is to
Mm.
just go out there. Everything that I did with Gootecks, I could have done by myself, but I didn't realize that yet, right? He interviewed Fantasy Strike when it was still like in alpha or closed beta or still in development or something, right? They had a booth. Went in there, interviewed them, asked them about the game, asked them about why this game exists and all these other things. You want to know more about players? Go up and ask players, "Hey, can I interview you?" Right? And that's content already. I mean, in a pre-COVID world, you would go to events, talk to people, say, "Hey, I am creating content. Can I interview you?" You might get yeses, you might get nos. With Gootecks, it's a little easier because it's Gootecks. Everyone in the FGC knows him, but it's not like that's impossible for someone like yourself, right?
Uh-huh.
You don't need that equipment. Like he had a Zoom, but honestly, everyone has a smartphone. Go and buy this Rode Video Micro thing that could attach to like a USB C and so your phone will have a pretty good mic after that. And just film interviews. It's
Hmm.
just start creating content, start experiencing things, start trying different things out, And then if you want to improve, yeah, go do your research and iterate.
Yeah, I think one big thing that I learned um, was that the first 100 you're gonna put out anyway is gonna suck, but you need to get the 100 out of the way first. So if I wanted to get a job at like a known organization or with a known person, like I, especially if I don't have experience, I gotta get the reps in and get all the bad mistakes out and learn that I have to clap so the audio synced, or like double check that my batteries are working in my Zoom or whatever else. Like you need all that, you need all that time, and everyone thinks that you just start off good. Like, no, you need to be bad for a while, right? I mean, I
Hmm.
remember with my YouTube channel when I was like documenting my journey, like no one was really watching that stuff, but I'm like, it doesn't matter, because the reason why I'm doing this is to like learn how to talk to a camera and like learn that, like, oh, I should turn my phone sideways rather than vertical because this is going on YouTube or whatever else, or like just learning how to talk off the top of my head and not ramble too much, which I don't know if I've gotten better at or not, but maybe it's a little more entertaining. But yeah, I had to put out literally 100 episodes and I still feel like I'm not great at it. But I also realized I'm probably better than I would have been if I didn't start then. Right. And that was 3 years ago. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. You learn a lot over those 3 years, and it's honestly just 3 years,
Hmm.
right? Time flies by, but then when you're actually in it and you look back, you'll notice that you've done a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of crazy. Um, yeah. So going back to like advice for people that are in college trying to hopefully get that job right outside of college, what are the things that you think they can be doing? I know you've mentioned like you didn't document stuff, but
Hmm.
you did do a lot. And it's funny because like I've been doing resume reviews on my stream, and I remember
Hmm.
actually someone in chat right now, Dweeb, he was applying for a partnership position, and I was like going through it. I didn't see anything about sponsors or partnerships, but I'm like, I feel like this bullet point here, like there's something there. Have you done anything? He's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. Like, I didn't think that I could twist that into like sales and partnership experience. I feel like maybe something like that could have happened with you when
Hmm.
you look back. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Just like preparing, either getting experience or how to frame your experience from college into your resume, or just looking for a job in esports after graduation?
Yeah, yeah. And this is my approach. I'm gonna tell everyone this,
Mm-hmm.
like, Hansei, if you want resume reviews, if you want interview tips, go to Sam. He's got you there. I'm not gonna teach you that. That's not my niche. I'm about that, building your personal brand. I'm about building out content and sharing what you know. That's what I'm about, and that's what I'm about to say. Because documenting your process is so important, you know? Like, and not only documenting, when I say that, people usually think content, thanks to Gary Vee.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure you're aware of who he is. But also, I mean, like, literally write down like what the hell your process is, right? And once you're able to write down your process and document it onto a piece of paper or into an actual, like, digital document, you'll start to figure out exactly, oh, cool, I can break down this process and then I could teach someone else this process.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? I'm using production as an example because that's one of the biggest things out there. When I was learning OBS, how to switch scenes, okay, cool. I noticed that switching scenes was kind of really annoying, and I had a lot of folders and there's just so much, and I was like, oh, hotkeys, right? Yeah, that's right. Hotkeys exist, but we never look at them. How do we? And before Stream Deck exists, it's like, what do you do? Well, I could use the numpad. No one uses the numpad, right? So I use the numpad, but I don't remember everything. Let's get some tape. Let's tape up and write some abbreviations down so we know exactly what's what on the numpad.
Mm-hmm.
Just little stuff like that. But then writing down those little hacks, those tips, those fixes to problems that you had will show people that you'll have something to show people, this is your thought process. This is how you went through problem solving. And it's even better if you learn to become a content creator and you actually document it and you vlog your experiences and you talk about what you did, what you learned how to do, and you story tell. Because by the time you finish, let's say your 4 years of college of doing whatever esports in college, you're gonna have a lot of footage and you're gonna have a lot of stories to tell, and you have proof right there, like video proof.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that you'll get better at it, like if you don't stop, right? Just say you're just going to be doing it for fun. Don't even think about trying to get a job off of your content, but just do it for fun, do it for the documentation's sake. You'll eventually get better. And guess what? By the end of those 4 years, you're gonna learn. You've learned how to edit videos, right? You've learned how to shoot. You've learned how to storytell. You've learned how to script things out. You've learned how to manage your time,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's a lot of stuff in production that you might not have done with like the live stream, running tournaments. But this is literally what it is to create content. And if you put it out there, then you're gonna have to learn marketing. You're going to have to learn how to speak the language of different platforms. You're going to have to maybe learn SEO if you're interested in that, right? So you start accumulating all these skills and experiences along the way that you never thought would matter until you look back and you're like, wow, I actually know a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part that matters.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's so good. I feel like, Peter, you've talked about this many times.
I've thought about this a lot, and yes, I have talked about it with my girlfriend Winnie a lot.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, even I thought something interesting from even those vlogs, right? I definitely did not use any of my vlogs and the documentation process to like apply to anything. I wasn't like, hey, look at like the 100 episodes that I did, because it wasn't really relevant for anything I was applying for. But just the fact that I talked about similar topics over and over and over again when I was in an interview or talking to someone about social media marketing, I'm just like, oh yeah, blah 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 blah. I'm like, wow, I just said that without like mumbling over my words, because I've just said it so many times that like it was practice and it was useful. And you never know what's going to be useful. That's the funny part, right? You apply for a
Mhm.
job, you get a job, and then you're like, oh Sam, do you know how to set up OBS? I'm like, well, that's a bad example because I'm not really that great at it. But for you, like if you got like a content production job and they're like, hey, we need to fix an overlay, do you know how to do this? You're like, yeah, I can do it. And if no one else knows how to do it, that just makes you even more valuable. And you're like, hey, look at that. I'm amazing.
Yeah, it's and you know what? It's not even like directly applicable skills. It's not like, so for example, let me give you an example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's use OBS. I've learned how to use OBS. I've done the scene switching and all of that stuff, and I understand how production works, right? Then throughout my time, I watch a lot of esports events, and I've learned what exactly like, and I studied it just for fun, right? But I noticed things, and so one day I get called up to cover for my friend who works at who does contract work at Blizzard. They do the graphics operation for the WCS for StarCraft 2,
Mm.
right, in Burbank. And I was like, okay, cool. But then they needed me for Saturday and Sunday. And I had 2 days to train. I had Thursday and Friday. Or maybe I had one day. I forgot. Anyways, I went over there and I walked into this big, really cool looking room with a bunch of, monitors and control panels, and it's a production room. What I found out was that, yeah, they did use OBS, but they also used their own proprietary software. It was software that was specifically developed for them to run WCS. You
Mm-hmm.
can't get it anywhere else because it's specifically made for them. And I was like, shit, I have to learn all of this in a day. But then I looked at it, and the more I started working with it, because we did a lot of practice runs, the more I did it, I was like, oh yeah, of course, this is just like doing like the skills I applied with working with OBS made learning the process of doing the scene switching, the graphics operating. That's what they actually call the position, a graphics operator.
Yeah.
But it made that so much easier for me to understand and comprehend and do it in a way where I was pretty fluent with it by the end of the first actual workday. And now I
Yeah.
know why sometimes you're like, oh, the name's wrong. You're watching esports tournament, the name's wrong. They switch the scenes a little too early. Something weird happens, and it's just, like that gives you some insight into like why things happen the way they do.
Yeah.
But besides the point, it was my experience with working with OBS that allowed me to learn this program super quickly.
Cool. That's awesome. So let's talk about branding. I know,
Sure.
you're like, hey, resume is my thing, getting a job, those kind of things. But let's get into stuff that you love to talk about, branding. So
Mm,
what do you think people, like anyone in esports, um, needs to know about branding? Like, what do you think is really
okay.
important that's ubiquitous information?
The
or should
first thing
be?
is, and within my circle of learning, it's become pretty cliche at this point because we've repeated it so many times, but in esports, it has not been. So branding, I've learned this definition from this guy named Marty Newmeyer, and he's written a lot of books on branding. I recommend you guys check him out. It's really cool. He's actually done stuff like the reason why Apple looks the way it looks today, and since like the first iPod with its like really clean white aesthetic and everything, it's because of that guy.
Hmm.
He's worked with a lot of different tech companies and done branding for them. But his definition of branding that I feel like everyone should know is that branding isn't the logo, isn't the colors, isn't anything literally visual at all. A brand is a person's gut feeling about a organization, products, or other person. I forgot exactly what it was because then I always add person at the end of it because I work more on personal branding.
Hmm.
But it's a person's gut feeling, pretty much about the product, service, or organization. There we go. That's what it is, right?
Nice.
Because it's way more about what the other person says your brand is than what you say your brand is. For example, I could say that I am, Apple could say that we are this, this, and that, right? And some people may agree with it. They're like, yes, Apple products are beautifully made. They're super intuitive. They are sleek in design, all these great things, right? But then you get some other people who are Android fanboys, and they're like, no, Apple design is boring. It's too simplistic. It's overpriced. It's too restrictive. It might be easy
Hmm.
to use, but it's too restrictive, right? And so Apple's brand in their eyes is a negative viewpoint. And so it's definitely more about what other people say about your brand is than what you say about it is. And the only thing that you can do is influence how other people perceive your brand. And that's everything else that you do, right? That's the content that you put out, that's the marketing, that's the way you speak, that's the visuals that you put out. And it's like what type of message are you trying to get across? And that's all of those things, including copywriting, right?
Yeah.
That's what makes up the brand, but the brand is in the eye of the beholder.
So so with that all that information, what is esports doing wrong then, or are they doing it right?
Some people are doing it right, and some people I don't want to like I'm trying to learn how to not be super judgmental with my words and be more objective, right?
Okay.
Some people, some organizations are just maybe ignorant to the idea, or they haven't thought about it because um their goals are elsewhere, right?
Hmm.
Managing a whole company and all the employees and trying to win and all these things that a competitive team should do. But the teams that do get it, the teams that have done it right, you could look at a team and be like, I know what a person, I know the type of players that they have, or I know what type of fans that they have, right? The most extreme example of one clan, I mean, of one, yeah, I kind of already spoiled it, but one team, FaZe Clan, right? You look at it, you're like, I know how the players would, I could already tell how the players would act. I know what their fans are about. I know what they like. I could personify FaZe Clan into a person. You could do that with C9 a little bit. You could do that with Team Liquid. You know what their values are. You could definitely do that with 100 Thieves. Like, the type of people
Hmm.
that, are fans of 100 Thieves or are going to be a part of that organization. But then you look at like a team like Fnatic or Immortals, or Astralis. Like, I don't really know what their organization is about.
Hmm.
You might know them from certain games if they've won championships or if they had a player that's very notable. What happens if that player leaves? Like, then what is the brand? What are they about? What do they believe in? What are their values? I don't know.
So do you think actually, so with players changing, and I think a lot of, whether it's right or wrong, a lot of the brand is because of what player, what big names, big stars, or players an organization has. Do you think that's okay for a brand to be changing on a year, every 2 years, every 6 months because of the players coming in and out?
It depends on the players that they signed, right? Obviously, the players that they sign have to really vibe with everyone in the company and really uphold the same values and beliefs as the company and the organization itself,
Yeah.
right? It'd be really weird if you know I don't know, like FaZe Clan again. You get a pro player, but he's like super timid. He's not really exciting or hype at all, and like it's like that doesn't fit. It feels weird to have someone not like the others in FaZe Clan,
Yeah.
right? Whereas it might be a little bit more okay with Cloud9. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So so while organizations have to really, yes, be careful on like who they pick up in terms of skill wise, but they also have to look at the personalities too and see, does this type of personality, will it make fans be more loyal to this brand? Do they personify the beliefs? Do they carry the same beliefs because they are an extension of our brand?
Hmm. Yeah, and I think, like, to touch on a point you said earlier, not all teams or organizations, like, we can't be judgmental because we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Some teams might be like, hey, all we have bandwidth to do is think about our competitive season because we have been, for example, Gold Guards, we've been like a 10th place team for 2 years or whatever. And then
Mhm.
and I think you see other teams, they do pick up the, I think 100 Thieves might be that example, at least with the League of Legends team, where at first I think they had a lot of people that might be known as fashionable or kind of the cool kids. But
Yeah.
then I think lately the players that they picked up have not necessarily felt very 100 Thieves. But at the same time, I think 100 Thieves has done a good job in trying to shape their players or at least show the 100 Thieves brand in those players, even if it's just like 5% of it or 10% of it, or even like try to get the players out of their shell.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They'll help them grow. Obviously, they see something in those players, right? And also, if you look at 100 Thieves, it's the content creators that really carry the brand, and Nate
Yeah.
Shot himself,
Yeah.
right? It's so cool when you get to see the CEO slash owner of a company really just like be out there and be himself and represent the company, because I mean, it is his company, right?
Hmm.
You got to see who the leader looks like. You got to see what the leader is about. You see Nate Shot, it's like, yo, that's a cool dude. Then you look at his friends and the content creators, like Jack and Valkyrie, and you're like, damn, that's a squad, like I want to be a part of that. That seems fun. And then the pro players, they could continue being pros, but Jack, yeah, I mean, but Jack interacts with the pro players, Nate Shot interacts with the pro players, and you see them interacting with each other. They're building this universe of characters in the
Hmm.
100 Thieves world.
Yeah. So I think I asked my Discord questions that they wanted to hear from you or answered from you, and one of the things that was brought up was Evil Geniuses rebrand, and then
Hmm.
FlyQuest rebrand. I don't know how familiar you are with like LCS, but I know they're, at least Evil Geniuses is much bigger than just their LCS team, because Evil Geniuses, and I guess for the audience, I'll just give a little quick summary. I think the general conception, at least from the league side, League of Legends side, is Evil Geniuses brand is almost cringy because they're like, we're the evil guys, we're the masterminds, the villains, those kind of things. And sometimes they force their players to do um, to fit that villain, even though they might be like a nice and shy kind of kid. And then you have FlyQuest, where people are like falling in love with them because they're very, they have a green initiative. They're very friendly. They're like friends with everyone. No one wants to trash talk FlyQuest because it's just picking on like the really nice kid in school, when like you're gonna get beat up if you pick on the nice kid because everyone loves the nice kid kind of thing. And yeah, what are your comments on their brandings and their styles, or do you have any additional thoughts about that?
Okay. Well, you said it. It's weird, right? When the players themselves can't live up to what evil geniuses want them to be, right?
Hmm.
If they want them to be like jokingly evil and play up this type of character, you got to have personalities that are able to do that. You got to get some of these trollsy characters that like to talk shit, but could live up to, that could back that up with skill, right?
Hmm.
So you would see a lot more of those personalities in the FGC from what I've seen before. Um, but then and then also, like, we could talk about the rebrand really quick. Like when Evil Geniuses rebranded their new logo and everything, and everyone was like shitting on it and whatever.
Hmm.
Um, I think the reason for that was just because like I didn't like, and I thought about this a lot, and I talked about this in a couple of discussions, but it was because there didn't seem to be a reason behind it.
Yeah.
You know, if you just change all of a sudden, everyone's like, "What the heck is going on? Why did you change something that was good?" And there was no change, and there was no reason other than it's time to change and you know move with the times. And it's like, but that's not compelling enough because we don't really care about the looks in that type of way. We care about the look before because that was legacy. That's what we grew up with. That's what the brand and the visuals that we came to know and love. EG is a legacy brand. And
Hmm.
once you change that, it feels like you're losing that legacy, but for what? We don't know. There was no reason behind it, right? Whereas, like, if they did something where the LEC, when they first came out with their rebranding and they showed the process and they showed exactly what they're about and why they did this and what the meaning behind the rebrand is and what they're trying to achieve, what the results are, then yeah, we could get behind it. But if you did it so vaguely out of nowhere, it's like, what's going on? You know, so that's what I got to say about that rebrand. That's what I have to say about. I don't watch the LCS, so I didn't know about the players trying to be all, like whatever, and it came off cringy. I mean, of course, right? You get personalities that can't do that type of shit. It's gonna be a little awkward.
Yeah.
FlyQuest, I love FlyQuest. I actually never really looked at FlyQuest at all up until recently when I know her as Megumi experience. Her name Trisha. Her name is Trisha, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, when Trisha took over and went and completely changed FlyQuest into this green, like you said, green economic no no eco-friendly sustainable brand that cares about the world, that cares about the earth and wildlife and all that stuff. I'm like, I know what you guys are about, I know what you guys are for, and that's so unique because we haven't seen anyone like this in esports before.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, in the beginning the graphics were, the graphics packages and the marketing was a little bit like, I would say, like, it's not as good looking as it is now, but like as I've watched evolve and grow, the designers, they kind of figured out their strides, or maybe they got new ones, I don't know, right? But the design of the logo, the designs of the marketing material and everything like that, it looks so much better now, which is fine. Like, I completely excuse the underwhelming graphics because they knew exactly
Hmm.
who they were for, what they were about, what they believe in, and they attract people who believe in the same thing. But not only that, they didn't only be like, yeah, we believe in this, everybody come in, right? They took it one step further and started acting on it too. You've seen their Twitter posts about their initiatives and
Hmm.
the fundraising and all that stuff like that and donations. It's just like, wow, you're actually not only saying this, but you're acting upon what you say and believe. And once you align what you believe and what you say and what you do, and they're all, those three things are aligned, then that means you really know who you are. And if you know who you are, then other people will be able to know who you are too.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk about FlyQuest about this because I don't think I've been thinking about this for a bit and I haven't talked to anyone about it, but I wonder about FlyQuest brand and I hope I'm convinced because I'm on the fence about this because I agree with everything you're saying. They're they put out their brand. It's very clear. It's
Hmm.
unique and people can get behind it. My
Yes.
concern is the decision to go for that unique brand. Does that is that captivating in esports? And is that at least captivating to enough people in esports? Like, is there a ceiling where only 5% of people will really, really like that brand? And then just because of who esports is? Or is that okay? Is that a problem? Am I completely wrong? I don't know where my opinion is yet, but this is what I've been thinking about. And I'm like, I don't know what to think about it.
Mm. Well, unfortunately, I don't know that much about esports business, like the internals, right? Of like
Hmm.
what's going on, if they're making enough money, who their investors are, and market share, all of that stuff. I don't know any of that stuff. But what I do know is that generally, you don't need to be number one. You don't need to be first place in terms of everything. Only one person could be up there, right?
Hmm.
And and as long as you know who you're for and you're part of a special tribe of people and you really continue pushing out your message and making people really become what do you call it? Um true fans of your brand, then I would say that you could become very successful. Because it's like this, right? If you see someone on Instagram and they have like a bunch of followers, but then every time they post, they get like they like you get like a million followers, but only like 20 comments every single time,
Hmm.
versus a person who has 10,000 followers, but every single time he posts, he gets like 5,000 comments. Like that's a very engaged community.
Yeah.
And that's worth way more than those 1 million likes, because those I mean, you could pressing a like button is so easy. I mean, pressing the follow button is so easy, right?
Hmm.
Like, but to actually engage and advocate and love that brand and tell other people about it, that's what's special. And it's the concept, if you want to look it up, it's by Kevin Kelly, called 1000 True Fans. If you take that, and basically they're saying, if you for an individual, you only need 1,000 true fans, to pay you $100 a month for whatever value offering that you put out there to make a living, right? Because 1,000 true fans, 100,000, I mean, $100 a month, that's $100,000. You could live pretty comfortably off of that,
Yeah.
right? You take that and you scale up to whatever number that is in esports land, and if you have an engaged fan base that is way more engaged than other esports brands that have more followers, then I think that's worth way more to investors. At least I would like to believe.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I like that. Um, Man, I had a question. I didn't want to. I wanted to keep listening, so I didn't like think about it a lot. um, oh
No
shoot, what
problem.
was it? Oh yeah. Um, is it okay if people hate your brand? Is that a bad thing?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I think you want to be loved or you want to be hated, but you don't want to be lukewarm, because you know what happens when you're lukewarm? You're neutral. And when you're neutral, no one talks about you. No one
Hmm.
has an opinion on you, right? Love me or hate me, at least you know who I am. Right. Now, it's better to be more loved than it is to be hated, but I think with love comes hate, and it's kind of inevitable.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who love Gary Vee, but there are a lot of people who hate him too. And they think he's on drugs, and they think he's too foul mouthed, and they think he's too motivational speakery, and not enough substance, and to a lesser degree, my mentor Chris Do as well, from the future, right? A lot of people don't like him because they say he's too cocky and this and that, when like I said, the brand is based on the other person's is all based on the person's perception, right? I don't see him as cocky at all. I just see him as confident.
Hmm.
They're two ends of the same coin. They're two different sides of the same coin. It's tilting on a very opinion basis. Like, obviously there might be a time where if you look at a person and you could see they're obviously being cocky, right? Like that's super obvious. But then if it's like in the middle where it could be determined either way, then it's whatever. But yeah, it's okay for your brand to be hated, as long as you have more love than you do have hate. Because if you have mostly hate, then you're doing something wrong.
Unless that's your brand, unless you're trying to be hated or something. But
Yeah, yeah,
then you just have to rethink your strategy, maybe. Um, yeah, so I think that's really interesting because I've seen people be very worried about that, where it's like they're trying to make sure that everyone loves them and everyone likes them, but then you're trying to please everyone, and when you're trying to make everyone happy, you pretty much make like no one really happy or like really attached to you. You kind of that lukewarm person because you're afraid to rub people the wrong way. And I think I hear this like a lot with streamers too, when they're like they want to make the content that they want to make, but they're afraid because of their audience, and then suddenly they're just like playing a game that they're not performing well, they're not really engaging, they're too afraid to be their personality because what other people are going to think and try to satisfy their audience, and then they just end up finding themselves making lukewarm content. So yeah, I think
yeah,
that's really valuable. Um,
yeah. Yeah. If I may
yeah,
go
go for it.
elaborate on that really quick. I liked how you mentioned streamers, because I hear a lot of people say that streaming is oversaturated, but I think on the contrary, or maybe it's true. But streaming space on Twitch is oversaturated with people with the same type of people. They're just
Mm,
very general people, right? A majority of the people turn on to stream and they just play the game, and they just expect to get viewers, right? But
yeah.
like that's where it's saturated. It's saturated with very general, like lukewarm streamers, all doing the same thing. The people who really stand out, or the people who really start to grow, understand who they are, what they're about. They're okay with, getting some haters because not everyone is for it, right? Back in the days of Dota 2 versus League, some League of Legends players might hate the Dota 2 guy, but hey, you got the Dota 2 community behind your back,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's you really got to know who you're for. And I tell content creators this all the time. I'm like, all right, who are you creating your content for? Because at the end of the day, you're not making it for yourself. If you're making it for yourself, then you don't need to grow. You're just content,
That's
right?
good.
So who are you doing it for? Because people are the ones watching you. People are the ones spending their time, and time is valuable. I tell people this all the time, guys. Time is valuable because it's the one asset in the world that you cannot get back. It moves forward, it doesn't go backwards, you can't get it back. So why would people spend the most valuable thing that they have watching you? What value can you provide to them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you could say like, oh, I'm funny, I'm entertaining and stuff like that, but that's like very surface level. It's like you have to really dig deep. You have to be very intrinsic thinking about what can you offer, because people aren't really looking for, they're not looking for like benefits anymore. They're looking for experiences, and past experiences. They're looking for a place to belong. And that's why there are some people who, you say, oh, this streamer does nothing but just chill there and play video games. Like, when I talk to older people, they're like, why are they watching this guy? I'm like, because they love him, because he interacts with this crowd, because he stands for something that they believe in so strongly, that they want to hang out, and everybody else in the community feels the same way. It's their tribe. You got to build it. You got to know who you're for.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Um, oh man, there's so much to talk about, but I know
there
we have
there
limited
is.
we have limited time, and I want to respect your time too. Last thing I want to, at least I think, last thing I want to talk about with branding. I think we've talked about really cool stuff when it comes to, especially people working in esports, people that have control over maybe their organization's brand, or even streamers controlling their own brand. What about people that are trying to get in esports? Like, is their brand important? And if so, like, what does that mean? What are they even thinking about when it comes to their brand? Or what
Yeah,
should
we
they be
have
thinking
come
about?
we have come full circle, right? Remember when I said document your process, and that's okay, because that helps you. Well, by doing a lot of things, you'll figure out what you want to do. I'm not going
Hmm.
to say you know exactly what you want in the first place, because that's hard. But what you do have to think about is start somewhere and niche down in that one area. Specialize. You have to specialize instead of trying to generalize. You could be a jack of all trades, but then, for example, to break it down, if you have if you have a problem with, if you need someone to operate a camera, are you going to hire a person who's good at production and camera work and graphic design and running tournaments, or are you going to hire that one dude that only does camera work, that
Hmm.
only films? Obviously that guy, because he's an expert. He's done that one thing 1,000 times, instead of just 10 times and 10 times here and 10 times there and various different things, right? So pick one thing, specialize, and niche down into it. And it's okay, because I know a lot of people are afraid to niche down. I had this conversation today with a student, and he was afraid of, some things. And I know other people are afraid of, like, maybe losing opportunities, or maybe becoming too bland, or whatever, right? But actually, more I've learned from Chris Do himself, that more opportunities open up as you start niching down. And once you become good at one thing, and everyone knows that you're really good at that one thing for some reason, and I forgot what it was called, but everyone thinks you're good at everything.
Yeah, yeah,
Right? You become good at that one thing, everyone's like, man, he must be good at other things. But but the opposite is true too. You do one thing poorly, and everyone's like, oh, he's not reliable anymore. So you might as well specialize in that one thing, get really good at it. And it's not like you can't pivot.
yeah. Hmm.
You could get bored of something and then just pivot into something else. But then all the experience, all of the networks that you've built, all the friends that you've made, everything that you've done doesn't go away. You don't start back at level one. You're just switching a job class. You're and the skills
Yeah.
that you learned, you're going to transition it and be able to apply it indirectly into the new stuff that you're doing too. But you just have to start somewhere and start niching down. And once you're niching down, then that's when your brand starts to develop, right? So everyone knows now. Before, people knew Peter Lamb as the guy who just wanted to work in esports, who, created some tournaments, who ran RIT Esports. I've done production, and they could say all these things, but not one person could pinpoint exactly who Peter Lamb was.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, if someone was like, "Who's Peter Lamb?" Oh, he's the guy that creates educational content, helping people find jobs and build their careers in esports. Or, oh, he's the branding guy. Or even like simpler. Oh, he's the education guy. He creates educational content about esports. Right? It could be as simple as that. But at least people know what I'm about,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's my brand.
No, that's super awesome. I think you've said that so clearly, and you knowing your brand just helps you talk about yourself or what you do so clearly. I think at one point, and like when I was trying to get a job in esports, I was like just trying to find projects, do my own thing, apply for all these jobs that I was definitely not qualified for, and I didn't realize it yet. But then at one point, I'm just like, I'm going to be the podcast guy in esports. I'm going to be that guy. And then even though that like didn't happen, and I didn't want to be in the end, like it still got me moving towards a direction. And like you said,
Hmm.
you specialize, and then suddenly you learn all these other skills, you're problem solving to figure out to solve all your problems. And suddenly I learned how to use OBS. I learned like clapping into the mic. I learned how to at least run a stream, even though I don't know OBS. I know like things I need to do to get it running. And then I learned SEO. I learned random YouTube things of how to be discovered, and you just start learning more and more. And then eventually, I think like I pivoted, like you said, and suddenly I became known as a guy that could do like interesting social videos with talking content, because everyone mutes on social media because they're on their phone. But then I'm able to be like, hey, I'm going to make your interview interesting on social media because I'm going to put subtitles on there. And I'm just going to learn how to do like these text animations that are really simple. I don't know how to edit videos. And for a long time, I never considered myself an editor because I'm just like, I'm going to learn how to do this. And then suddenly that actually led to me getting more and more opportunities because I was like, I'm the guy that can make your social clips from your 2 hour long podcast on YouTube that's not get like that you can't figure out how to advertise on Twitter and get people to click on the YouTube link because no one clicks off of Twitter. So
Hmm.
yeah, I love that. I love that so much. Ah, man. Um, I think maybe the last thing I want to ask you
Mm.
before we wrap up, what is what do you think is most interesting to you that you like talking about?
Me, probably personal and professional development. Those
Yeah,
two I could talk about all day. Like esports, I could definitely talk about all day. There's so many good cool things in esports, but if I were to just be a generalist for a second, in a sense, and talk to anybody about anything, it would be personal and professional development.
gotcha.
That's what I love.
So then with that follow up, and I know you haven't had time to do any research, but what would you say to me, or what are like some questions you'd ask me if I was like, hey, um, I need help with that?
You need help with personal or professional development?
Yeah.
I would ask you, why do you exactly do you need help? What exactly do you need help in?
Okay. Can we go down this line a little bit, this rabbit hole?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do this, because this is literally, you could see what I do with students or people who's asked for my help a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
so we'll get to do it live.
All right, cool. And we won't go on like a 30-minute thing. We can just like make this maybe, I don't know, 10 minutes sound okay for you?
Dude, you know what? I'm helping you out, so it's however long it takes.
All right. It
Right?
might take a
However
while
long you're
then.
okay with it.
I got lots of problems. No, I'm just kidding.
Let's focus on one. So let's say right now, when it comes to professional development, right?
Mhm.
Growing your brand, you're creating this content. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What is the biggest challenge for you?
Okay. So I think let's start really general, and then I'll try to get as focused as possible, so we don't just like um, become a tangented mess. Um, I think one of the big things is I finally got into esports. It's really cool.
Hmm.
I'm loving it, and I'm 31. I'm married. I have a
Hmm.
dog. Our family is growing and will grow. God willing, I want to have kids. And eventually, like if I do want to stay in esports or at least something that I'm really passionate about, I need to probably find certain amount of, let's see, maybe financial and career success to be able to have a stable job where I can still really prioritize my family, right? So if that's like a 40-hour week thing, maybe like a typical 40-hour week job that might be flexible. Um, I think that might be more managerial stuff. So I don't have to be editing for 60 hours in a crunch week or something like that, right?
Hmm.
Part of that is also I need to spend time outside of work gaining some extra skills, right? I think one of the reasons why I like to do YouTube and trying to do the stream stuff is I get to play with other people's YouTube channels, our streamers, and they got clout. I do not. So when I give advice, I'm basing it off of them, and I want to say confidently, like, this works. At least I've done this, so I know this can work in a specific situation, which would be my situation, right? So I want to
Hmm.
have that authority to be able to do that. And part of building my professional career, I'm trying to focus on my personal career or my personal brand so that I can be more valuable in the future, right? If more people know me, if the right people see my content or video or know my name, suddenly I could be, scouted, headhunted, or I can move somewhere and be like, hey, this person, I moved to Seattle and I'm looking for a job. It's like, I know you, Sam. Like, I've seen your stuff. Let's talk. And, so and also I want to this is the problem. I'm trying to do a lot of things and I think I'm waiting to see what sticks, and then maybe that could be a viable career too, a career option. And one of the reasons I'm pushing streaming and YouTube is because it would be really cool if I'm able to have flexible hours. I set my own hours. I'm able to do something that is really fun and what I find very valuable to me in helping other people or entertaining people, educating people, helping other people find their dreams. If I'm able to make YouTube content, live off the AdSense or merch or whatever other ways to monetize that, that's also something that would be very valuable to me. And again, solidifying my future career so I can take care of my future family.
Hmm. So what I'm hearing is that right now you're in this stage of your life. You're 31 years old. You're married. You want to have kids, or you have kids?
I want to have kids.
You want to have kids. You got a dog. You're looking for financial stability.
Mm-hmm.
You want to gain extra skills, and you work with really high level people, but you also want to build your own personal brand to increase your value in, let's just call it, the marketplace or in the
Mm-hmm.
industry,
Yep.
right? And if possible, you would like to live off of your content, but you want people to know you for your skills and what you know how to do. Sounds about right?
Yeah. I think that last point was like, oh, yeah, you defined something that I didn't really know because it was very abstract. Yeah.
Mm. And so, say if we were having this conversation 3 years from now, what has to have happened in your professional and personal life to be happy, looking back at everything that's happened?
Yeah, I think 3 years from now, right? I think by then I would have a kid. I think it might I may or may not be wrong about this. I think I wouldn't have that career success that would be like, oh, I can be like really free, have a really well balanced work life balance, and kind of just have maybe the authority or level that would get me there. Um, but I definitely want to be on that path. I want to be able to see like, hey, I've made progresses. I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I've been in esports longer, so I understand the industry better. The industry might be more defined.
Hmm.
And again, I guess it doesn't have to be esports. I
Well,
realize like,
what would you be doing, right? So what I'm asking you to do right now is set up your desired future state. 3 years
mhm.
from now, this is best possible solution. What's going on? You got a kid? Are you still living in LA? Are you working in esports? What are you doing?
Yeah, okay. So let's say the ideal scenario is that I have found a way. Yeah, I have at least, yeah, probably one kid. Doesn't matter where I'm living. It could be LA, it could be Seattle, it could be somewhere as location as long as I enjoy it. But it would be really cool if I had my own thing, whether it's YouTube, whether it's my own business, which I don't know what that would be. But let's just say YouTube for now and streaming or whatever that is, content creation, let's call it.
Hmm.
And it's making enough money where I can uh, be flexible with my schedule, make sure I can take care of my kid, be with my kid, be with my wife, be with my dogs, whatever that situation is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds nice, right?
Yeah, it
Having
does
your own
sound nice.
business, right? You live in a nice city, in a nice house, maybe, and you have a flexible schedule to spend time with family,
Hmm.
right? And so, what's the biggest thing that's getting in the way? Let's not even say that. What's the biggest challenge that's stopping you from getting there right now?
I think some things could be I don't have, I'm not good enough yet. Like I don't have the skills or the network or whatever that may be. Like I'm not a good enough editor. I'm not a good enough speaker. I don't have the right, good enough idea yet. And maybe, uh,
Well, let's
yeah,
keep it there. Not
okay.
not good enough, right? Not good enough
Mhm.
for what?
Um, to make content that would be valuable enough to enough people that I can make. I wouldn't have the 1,000 true fans. I haven't hit that point yet.
Hmm. And so what is good enough?
And I think that would be some type of formula that I scrounge together, which let's say with $100,000 a year. Let's say actually, if we're talking about finances, making $100,000 a year off of content.
Okay. And how will you get there?
So, for example, as we said before, if I had 1,000 true fans that were able to give me $100 a month, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
then
Yep.
we would get there. And so that could be
Yeah.
200 at 50. That could be wow. Ever since I dropped out of engineering, I like cannot do mental math anymore. But yeah,
It's
but then
okay.
it's a formula that equals 100,000. And then I think the other thing that I might be forgetting about this is that um, I think I would have to work probably less than 50 hours a week on
Okay.
average. I think so. I don't know if that's reality, but that's
Well,
what I think.
but you see what's going on right now. You're thinking about it. You have an idea. You're like, okay, cool. I want to hit $100,000 a year, right?
Hmm.
I need to get 1,000 true fans. So it's like, how can you, from a business standpoint, because this is the one thing about content creators, you are a business,
Hmm.
right? This is a business. So it's like, what can you do? What kind of value can you provide to people that can help you obtain money is just a way to exchange value.
Yep.
That's all it is, right? Money helps you obtain stuff, but the real value is what you provide. People give you money in
Hmm.
exchange for the value that you provide. So it's like, all right, what value do I want to provide? That's one. And two, how can I build a brand that people really trust?
Hmm.
That's the only thing. It's not about what you know, but it's like, do people trust you?
Yeah.
Right? And I trust that you would, and I already trust you enough that you would go out there and try to learn as much as you can to make sure that the information you're providing isn't wrong, or at least if it is, then you're going to correct it.
Hmm.
You're going to learn and you're going to be like, oh, you know what, I learned this thing and I learned that it's wrong. Here's what it actually is, my bad. Right? I
Yeah.
trust that you would do that. And that goes a long way. Trust goes a long way. So you're thinking about it, and now you could start thinking about, all right, what do I want to be known for? You're kind of getting there,
Hmm.
right? Remember, niching down in your brand, but what do you want to be known for? And once you figure that out, and I know you're thinking about it, once you figure that out, it's like, okay, now how can I make sure everyone knows who I am? And this is called positioning yourself as an expert,
Hmm.
right? And this is not saying that you are an expert at this. This is other people saying that you're an expert at this.
Oh, that's interesting.
And how will people see you as an expert at one thing? By becoming a lifelong student or a researcher, whatever you want to call it. But like, you're going to learn about all this stuff. Everything that I'm telling you right now, I've learned off of a book or Chris Do. And
Yep.
and Chris and Chris has read these books that I'm reading too. So like, this knowledge all comes from somewhere. I'm just kind of taking my own experiences and what I've learned, and I'm telling it through my own lens.
Hmm.
and people have already called me an expert in branding, but I've just started doing this since like December 2019.
That's awesome.
You see how like short of a time period that is, but it's just because I keep on studying and I keep on talking about it and I try things out and I'm telling people what I'm doing and telling people what I'm learning. Eventually people are like, oh wow, Peter knows his shit. When more people start knowing about what I do, then people might be more willing to want me to continue teaching. They value what my mission is, what my goal is, and they love what I'm doing, and they want to support me. So I'm like, hey, I might not get the 100, but I might get the 25. I'm like, hey, can you guys support me with $25 a month? And with there, maybe you'll get access to me every month, like one-on-ones or something, like
Hmm.
like some kind of thing, right? Something more than just watching my videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, exchange of value, and I support you, and I want you to keep on living so you could do what you do, making money, sustaining. I will give you that money to support you, and that's just where it starts, without getting super too long. But I could see you thinking.
Yeah. That's cool. Um, I'm about to turn this on you now because I have a question about something you said with the expert thing.
Mm,
And I think this kind of gets into imposter syndrome, right? This is something that's really common among creatives. Um, I guess it doesn't even have to be creatives, but you mentioned, you don't have to be an expert, but everyone else has to think you're an expert. How do you, I mean, first of all, I'm assuming you deal with like, oh, I'm not an expert. Like, I can't believe people think this about me. And maybe there's a pressure with that too, especially when suddenly there's a monetary exchange, because I think people can be really sensitive about money, right? Especially with like
mhm.
creators and stuff. Um, yeah. How do you think about that, or at least uh, give yourself confidence about that
Mm.
imposter syndrome and that thought process that I've kind of rambled through.
Yeah, I've had a lot of imposter syndrome before,
Hmm.
and I figured out a way to beat it, and that is by not saying that I'm like, it's just basically I'm calling out what I am, right? I'm not an expert. You guys could think I'm an expert. You could call me that, but I will never call myself an expert at this thing because I know I'm always learning. Instead, I'm just like what I said. I'm a lifelong student. I'm going to be learning this stuff and I'm going to share it with you, right? I'm going to share with you what I've learned. I'm a curator of knowledge.
Yeah.
And if I'm able to take this knowledge and I'm able to apply it in my own life, in my own business, in my own work, and I've learned something new from it, and then I could teach you guys what I've learned, right?
Mm.
And you don't even have to use the word teach. You could just use the word share all the time. Just share what you've learned, share your experiences, share this, share that. And you're like, and when someone asks you how to do that, you're like, ah, I remember. Yeah, I have done that before. Right. Or they're like, no, but let's figure it out because that's what I do. I am not saying that I have the answers to everything, but
Hmm.
what I am saying is that I am willing to go learn it. And that's more important because once you said you know everything or you're like, oh, I'm so good, then people put the expectations on you. But I killed that expectation by saying, no, I'm not. I'm just learning.
So do you
I am.
think? Oh, sorry. Go on.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Do you think that not calling yourself an expert is hurting your brand, though? I'm curious about that because I think a lot of people can sit because what they something that I realized in branding, especially like with Golden Guardians, is that like
Mhm.
sometimes you just need to say it, and then people just like latch onto that. But you not saying you are an expert or whatever other terminology, do you think that's you're missing out on potential brand value from that, or yeah?
No, because everything says it in my mission. I'm not. My mission isn't to be an expert. My mission is
Mm.
to help people. My mission is to educate. Right. So when people tell you what do you do, I'm like, oh, I'm an expert brand strategist. No, I don't even tell people I'm a brand strategist. When they ask me what I do, it's like, oh, I create content to help people figure out where they belong in esports and how to make money doing what they love. Or if I'm talking to a person who potentially wants to maybe work with me to actually do the brand strategy process, be like, yeah, I help brands figure out who they are, who their customers are, align that, and make sure that well, who they are, who their customers are, and what their business priorities are. And I help align all of that to help you make the right decisions in order for you to grow. It's like, oh, cool. Because when you say brand strategy, it's so vague. If I tell people what I'm trying to do, how I'm helping people out, and what the results that they could get from it, that's it. You know.
Dude, that's awesome. I love that. That's so good. That's so good. Um, I want to just like end it right there. But before I do that, I want to ask like, is there anything else like you want to say or talk about before? And I will give you time to plug your stuff. But is there anything like you want to talk about or
I'm just wondering that, for the shorts, I guess, conversation where I was helping you out, like, were you able to get help?
yeah,
Were you
no,
able to find clarity?
yeah, and I think like it's really cool because I think we digest some of the some similar content, so we're speaking the same language. I think a lot of these things I've thought about, and if anything, it's just validation hearing it from someone else, or at least
Hmm.
solidifying because I heard it from someone else, or heard it for the fifth time this time, or whatever. And
Hmm.
also some of those really cool bombs that you dropped. I'm like, you know. So yeah, no, it's definitely helpful. I appreciate
Good, because I knew we kind of stepped away from that, like very smooth transition. But
that.
my main concern was like, were you able to get value off of that? Were you able to find clarity? And if you were, then I'm glad I was, that little session I was able to help you out in some way or form.
Yeah, no, that's super, super awesome. And I appreciate that. There's
Yeah.
also just a lot of mess in my head and there's a lot of options and a lot of, but I think um, it's helped me get a little bit more focus. And then also
Hmm.
just, I think ultimately I have to kind of just weigh my options, right? It's like, yeah, I have to weigh my options and think because ultimately I have a limited amount of time. I can't just do everything. I can't try every route, but just going forward in a certain direction, especially with the idea of the 1,000 fans kind of thing, um,
Hmm.
helps give direction to move forward and not move sideways as much.
Yeah, I think there are two books that I could recommend you to read if you're into reading.
Sure.
Okay. The first one is This is Marketing by Seth Godin. I don't
Mm,
know if you heard of Seth Godin, but he's a master marketer, and that book is super cool. He dives into the concept of tribes. He dives into the concept of what actual good marketing is, and
hmm
marketing is just a generous act of helping someone. It's just a generous act of helping another person.
mm,
That's what marketing is. It's not pushing product in someone's faces. It's not, whatever people think marketing is with those numbers and analytics. Like, those can contribute to marketing, but if you look at it in a way, it's like, hey, I'm just trying to help point you in the right direction, to help you out, then yeah, that's what it is. And then there's another book called by David C. Baker, called The Business of Expertise. And this will help you position yourself and maybe give you even more clarity through the readings of what exactly you need to do in order to position yourself as an expert in whatever you want to do.
hmm
And those
Cool.
two things I think will help you out a lot.
Oh, nice. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Peter, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people find you?
So the URLs I haven't really those pesky URLs. So if you on YouTube, if you just Google Hansei GG together in one string, then you'll find my channel there. I am on Twitter, and I think that's Hansei_GG.
hmm
And then tomorrow, if you guys are interested, I will be talking more about content creation in depth and doing a little Q&A there on my own live stream tomorrow at 6 p.m. So that's on twitch.tv/HanseiGG, all one word. And that's pretty much where you'll find me. I'll put out content. And if you guys are interested in learning about something specific, please let me know. So if I do know it, I could create content and share what I do know. If not, then I'll go learn it. I'll go read a book or two. I'll go watch some videos, learn it, and then teach you guys.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And wherever you guys are listening to this or watching this, in the description, you'll have all those links so you can easily find them as well. So yeah, thank you, Peter. You provided so much value, not only to me, but I'm sure the listeners and all the people that are listening to this. So I really appreciate you coming on. And with that, thanks for listening to another episode of the Work in Esports podcast. See you guys next time.
See you later. And thanks for having me.